So the big question is this. Why well-being conscious women just like us who want to live healthy and happy life are constantly feeling vulnerable, like, what if I get attacked? And so many people who teach self-defense are tough men or martial artists who don't seem to understand what women really go through every day. How can we feel safer and be more confident in our personal safety? That is the question, and this channel gives you the answer. My name is KINKO Hamilton, and welcome to Rise Up Against Violence. All right, ladies, today I'm so excited to introduce you this woman who I've come to know through Instagram. Thanks God for the social media for this purpose, right? She is a co-founder of and chief impact officer at Study of Violence, a trauma-informed educator, and is certified by both Senshido, SEF International, and trauma-sensitive yoga, which is very interesting. I've never heard of it. Her name is Pamela Armitage, and I've found her through Rich Dimitri's Instagram page because Rich was posting. Oh, by the way, Rich is kind of one of the pioneers of self-defense industry, and he's done great work. And I've come to know him and Pamela through him. So I'm so excited to have you, Pamela. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yes. So first of all, I'm so impressed with the Study of Violence website. I spend, I don't know how many hours of work is that. I watched every single video. That's
Yeah.
a lot of
It's
work, and
a
you're
lot.
giving that for free.
Yep. Yeah, completely free. So it includes videos. The videos are intro videos, and then below the intro videos, the intro videos kind of outline what to expect in each subject under each course. And then underneath those videos, we have the meat of the courses and the subjects, which is all the readable material. So it gets a little bit deeper. We have 5 free courses there, and it's not, free with underlying read the fine print kind of thing. They're free completely. There's no catch. You don't have to enter an email. You're not going to get spammed after that or anything. There's no fees. It's completely free. We wanted to give it away for free because we believe so strongly in the information through the years of testimonials from people who have learned what we teach, and it saved their lives from unbelievable, very heartbreaking and traumatizing circumstances. So, we wanted to give it for free. We believe every human being has the right, especially vulnerable individuals, the ones targeted in society. They have that right to learn this stuff without worrying about the cost and accessibility and that kind of thing. So the sole purpose and mission of it is to improve people's lives, not just save people's lives, but improve them. There's a lot of reflection on ego and trauma and the like on there. So we're very passionate about it and put that up for free for everybody.
Yeah, I'm so appreciative of that. I mean, it's just very unique angle that you guys approach to self-defense, right? And one of the things that I really love about and resonate most is that you mentioned that there's no art in violence. So I'm a martial artist, and I know Rich is too. Are you a martial artist as well, or?
I myself am not a martial
Okay.
artist. I got into this industry through meeting Rich, from my experience being in an abusive, emotionally and psychologically abusive marriage, as well as friends and family going through sexual assaults. And I, through that experience, I sought out self-defense. I wanted to learn self-defense, but everything I found was very either martial arts based, which I always loved martial arts. I was, kind of obsessed with, Buffy the Vampire Slayer growing up, and, Nikita, the Femme, and all that stuff. And I love fight choreography. But I always knew from experience, from loved ones that that's entertainment and art, and it's beautiful and it has its place, but when it comes to the reality of abuse and sexual assault, there's no art in violence. It's not choreography. It's not they don't take these things. It has its place. It's great for things like confidence, wonderful for confidence building, which is a key tool when it comes to protecting yourself, having the confidence and believing you're worthy of protecting and defending. And things like athleticism and that it's great for all of those things, but it doesn't translate into the realities of violence. People, predators, especially antisocial violent individuals, they don't use karate and BJJ and all these things to attack people. That's not what they use. They use violence. It's very instinctual. It's ugly. It's not moves that you're defending against or attacks. It's the emotion behind it. It's rage, racism, misogyny, and these very powerful, scary, traumatizing emotions. And that's what you're defending against. And I found in my seeking out of a self-defense program that none of them talked about that. They didn't even talk about prevention. It was right to, they do this, you do that. I was like, well, how did we get here though? Because ambushes and stranger attacks are rare. It's only 10% of the time. 90% of the time you're looking at someone and they didn't seem to talk about these things. And it was very artsy and fluid and beautiful, but it wasn't answering the questions that I had or the people that I knew that had just been through a rape or a sexual assault had. It didn't talk about intuition, no mention of trauma and the aftermath and first aid or any of that stuff. So I found Rich because he was the only one that was talking about this stuff. I literally scoured the internet trying to find anything, and he was the only one that talked about it. So as I began communicating with him, we ended up, we're husband and wife now. So through that, we ended up becoming a couple, and that kind of through the lot, I lost my sister to a heroin overdose almost 6 years ago now. And that's kind of what fueled my passion into trauma. Was prior to her, her dying, I was looking into trauma sensitive yoga because I'd been going through my own traumatic experience and was diagnosed with PTSD and all of that stuff. And then the loss of her just kind of was like pouring gasoline onto the fire, if you will. And it just sent me into this industry. And, I realized nobody's talking about trauma. And, most of the people that come to a self-defense class, especially women, they come after something's happened, whether it's to them or someone they know, and nobody's talking about this stuff. Nobody's even taking trauma-informed approaches. They're throwing women who have been through hell and been through some very awful things right directly into, a mounted position in a drill in that, without considering that, hey, that might be re-traumatizing your student or triggering your student, and they're not facilitating safe environments or empowering environments, and they're not even taking it into consideration. So I'm very passionate about changing the industry in that sense. We need to talk about this stuff. Is as scary and ugly and as it is, it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because, the self-defense industry is, well, if you think about the data, right, statistically speaking, the majority of violence is caused by men against men, right?
Yeah.
So most women experience violence at the same level, but that's not, we just said exactly right. Like you just said, we just don't talk about enough, right? So all the women who come to self-defense, so instructors themselves have some sort of experience in traumatized events. That's why we kind of got up and seek, like you, look for an answer and found something, then just dive right in, right? Dive deeper. But let's talk about this, Pamela. You said, I believe trauma is a silent epidemic and is a root cause to many social issues like addictions, abuse, domestic violence, antisocial behavior, and many mental illnesses and diseases. Trauma, it is such a strong word, but yet
it's taboo.
It is taboo. Yeah, it is taboo. And but yet people who are watching this understand that, that's what trauma is. And I'm still struggling, actually. I saw a therapist last week I have the specific event that I just have to, just comes out, like when something triggers, it just comes back, right? And I just control, like I lose my control. So that's the thing that I'm working on. But tell us, Pamela, how did you, first of all, I'm so sorry about your sister. her.
Thank
Hope
you.
she's, rest in peace and doing well up in the sky. But for you, what did you do, or how are you coming out of a trauma, or how are you turning trauma into the fuel you to be you?
So, how do I manage it? First of all, I think it's important too that to kind of redefine the current paradigm of what is understood as what qualifies as trauma. Trauma isn't the event itself, it's the aftermath. So trauma is, by definition, it's the aftermath of an event or experience that overwhelmed the individual, that they couldn't process it. And then, not everyone with trauma has PTSD, but everybody with PTSD has trauma. But that doesn't mean that just because you haven't been diagnosed with it, that you aren't experiencing psychological trauma. And it's not just violence or, childhood abuse or, domestic violence or witnessing something. It's any event that overwhelmed you. Grief, the loss of a loved one is considered a form of trauma. A divorce, financial ruin, and illness, even witnessing someone you love very deeply going through these things is a traumatic experience for the person witnessing it. So I think expanding our idea and definition of what qualifies as traumatic and a traumatic event is very important. And how I manage mine is therapy for sure, but not all therapists are created equal, right? They're human beings, and not all of them are educated on trauma. The study of psychological trauma is still very new. We're still, to the point that coping mechanisms, they've added, another 2 or 3 within the last few years that people don't talk about: please and appease, and, attach, cry for help. People understand fight, flight, freeze, and even submit. But, attach, cry for help, and please and appease, nobody knows what those are, and they manifest. They're very common in people. So how do I manage it? How do other people manage it? Therapy, counseling for sure, but understanding that therapy and counseling is a trusting relationship. That's a relationship with another person that can be a healing one, or it can be a damaging one. And how do we find the one that's healing and trusting? Well, we have to maybe try a few out. It's a trusting relationship. And like any other relationship, a friendship, an intimate relationship, we have to develop trust. And sometimes we have to try a few different ones before we find that right fit. I compare it to a friendship or, even a romantic partner. When a friendship or relationship fails, we don't throw our hands in the air and go, oh, I guess I just won't have friends then, right? Or I guess I just won't have a romantic partner or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. We keep trying. We make other friends. We go out on other dates, and we meet other people. And a therapist or counselor is no different. You have the right and power to even interview, if you will, a therapist or potential counselor. Ask them, what's your idea of what does trauma-informed care look like? What's your education and your studying? What's your experience with trauma? Are you up to date on the most current research and findings of trauma? And they should have answers, like, well, I keep up with Bessel van der Kolk and the Body Keeps the Score and the Trauma Research Institute. I'm up to date on all the most latest findings and research. A trauma-informed approach looks like a collaborative, trusting relationship. I don't force you to tell me what happened to you and to give me details. We work at your pace. That's what it should look like. And too often that isn't the case, and it turns people off from therapy. So it is important to seek a therapist and to talk to a counselor. And, it helped me tremendously, for sure. It gave me some good tools, and it was an unbiased opinion about why I think the way I think, why I react the way I react to certain things. They kind of explain it to you in a scientific way that you can understand your brain. That the left brain shuts down, the trauma brain is caught in the right. It's very emotional. So connecting to rationale and that kind of thing is hard for someone who's stuck in the trauma brain. So giving tools, that really helped. Yoga was tremendously helpful, especially with managing the anxiety, which was at some points in my life absolutely horrendous, waking up in panic attacks and the like. Yoga helped a lot with that. Meditation was huge. Journaling helps a lot. Starting my morning, having certain routines, I meditate as soon as I wake up. Before I even get out of bed, I sit and meditate, and I do affirmations, and the affirmations will depend on what my day looks like, how I'm feeling, what the last 2 days have been like. So it might be, I'm safe in my body. I am safe. I am loved. I am strong. I am it can be very, very powerful affirmations. And then journaling, you know, um, future self journaling through Dr. Nicole LaPera's tool, which I really like. She's a holistic psychologist on Instagram. Love her stuff. She's great pioneer in the trauma informed industry for sure. And movement, figuring out how much movement my body needs. Movement is very powerful. It gets you back in with your body. It releases endorphins. So movement through walks, nature, and talking it out. Having a safe relationship, whether that's through a therapist or a loved one, your partner, when you're feeling things and thinking certain things, that you can actually voice them, because it doesn't do us any good to bottle these things up. It's actually detrimental to our physical health as well as our mental health. So those things really, really helped. And, an understanding too, this one's huge, is that healing is a journey. It's not a destination. There's no, okay, I'm good, 100, I reached one level 100% healed, and now I never have to, worry or think about this stuff again. It doesn't work that way, because life is trauma. We're going to go through life, and we're going to get hit with other things that are going to come our way, and we're going to lose people. Unfortunately, that's the way of life, and that's the circle of life and the cycle of it. And but understanding that it is a journey, and that empowerment comes from many things. And one of the things that it comes from is, reflecting back on how far we've come. I'm not feeling so good today. I feel low. And why can't I just get over this? Pause and reflect, and notice that your thoughts are just your thoughts. They don't equal truth. They're just your thoughts. And reflect back, 5 years ago, look where I was. 6 years ago, look where I was. I have come, holy crap, have I come a long way, and I'm much stronger now. And I have that power of self-observation and self-awareness that I didn't have 6, 7 years ago. And that can really do a lot to lift you up out of those low places too, is reflecting back on how far you've come. And think how far I am now, how far am I going to be in another 5, 6, 7 years, right? So that's huge, definitely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can totally see you are you're definitely somebody who I have, what's the right word? I have brings me joy to look on, even on Instagram, right? Just great to see you on social media, and whatever you post, it's really something that, gives us something to think about and elevate our daily lives. I want to change the gear a little bit.
Yep.
And talk about today's, our days, like today. So our society is currently going through a collective trauma and its role in the increase of domestic violence, which is skyrocketing, and mental health issues and the psychological trauma manifesting as a result, which obviously we're talking about COVID-19, social distancing, house arrest, well, not house arrest, but what is it, staying home.
Lockdown,
right? Yeah, lockdown, as well, the increase of social violence situations occurring from differing opinions. That is huge on public mask use, social distancing, and lockdowns. And Pam, I want to share with you quickly one story. So I was talking to one of my coaches. I do pressure points self-defense, and he was saying that he went to the grocery store, and this store had the lockdown cashier area, right? And this cashier lady had the mask on, the eye goggle, and the shield and everything. Then this lady who is trying to buy a milk or whatever, right? She was wearing a mask, but she took a cash instead of tap pay or whatever. She used a cash. The cashier lady flipped and trying to assault this lady who's trying to pay by cash. That's just the extreme
reaction.
It is, but believe it or not, you see this kind of thing a lot, and you're absolutely right. Like we are really, without realizing it, we are definitely being traumatized. So, Pam, what's your take on this?
So, first of all, it is a collective trauma we're going through. We are, as human beings, we're a social creature. We thrive and need social connection. It's part of, it's how we're built. It's one of the most commonly known things, and even psychology, is that we are social creatures. We need connection. We need it. It's an intricate part of our survival and our mental health. And that's being limited, and has been limited, and for some people taken away completely, for people who live alone, for example, and they can't see anyone that they in their life that they love. It's very limited to, like, this, a screen conversation, which, yeah, it's better than nothing, but it's still not. We need touch too. We need physical connection and physical touch with people. So that's being taken away. Very traumatizing, affects the mental health. And it triggers a lot of people who are we're already living in a traumatized society before this, and this is just like pouring gasoline on fire for some people. And it's why you see an increase in conspiracy theories, for example. There's a name for it, and I can't remember what it's called, but in psychiatry and psychology, extreme conspiracy theory is considered a trauma response, and it's linked to overwhelming sense of lack of control and not being able to find answers to things. So we will desperately search for something that makes sense of what's going on, when the reality is that we can't make sense of what's going on. Sometimes there is no answers for things. Sometimes that's just reality of life. At times we don't have answers, or the answer isn't the one that we want. And to find some sense of semblance and comfort in that, we seek out certain things. And this is why we're seeing, and the conspiracy theory thing is also fuel for violence. This is where we have the anti-mask violence coming out, or social distancing. And these are social violence situations. These individuals that are getting in fights, or they're flipping out on people, they're not necessarily predatory individuals. They're not sociopaths. Some might be, for sure, but the reality is the majority of them are not. They're actually, if you took them out of all this situation and what's going on, very likely decent human beings, but they have trauma. They're overwhelmed. We don't know what's going on in that individual's life. The cashier, for example, she flipped out over cash. That's not a normal reaction to a normal, healthy human being, but she is living and working in an environment that is putting her at risk. And we don't know what her day was like before that moment. Maybe she was being verbally assaulted and abused by customer after customer after customer. Maybe she is living in a very unhealthy living environment. Maybe her boss, the one that owns that shop, is a horrible person, treating her like garbage. And that, maybe she just found out that someone she loves died from COVID, or has gotten COVID and is on life support, or whatever it is. And then someone hands cash, and it's riskier to be paying with cash. And it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And this is what we're seeing is people are at their wits' end. They respond with aggression, very abrasive, and the person they're responding to or speaking to very aggressively and angrily is also caught in their emotional brain. They're also very stressed. So the response back is also very emotional and angry. How dare you talk to me that way? And then things escalate to the point where it turns violent and turns into a fight. Where if people understood, tapped into their empathy and tried to reach that person with empathy, like, hey, I'm sorry that that I did something to anger you. I'm sorry that we're in this situation, and it's not personal. I have a sick person at home, and I have to wear a mask. I can understand the frustration. I'm frustrated too. Rather than F you, how you dare you talk to me that way, try and reach them with empathy. Try and, understand that maybe there's more going on. Is it really about a mask? Probably not. Reach them with empathy. If you
Yeah.
can't reach them with empathy, you're very nice and polite, and you try and, show them some human kindness and make them feel seen and heard, just as you would want. If you were upset about something, you would want to feel seen and heard. If you can't reach them, they're not a good person having a bad day. This is potentially a sociopath just looking for a reason to hurt someone. And you are within your legal right at that point if you've tried to de-escalate and they're not backing on to strike first, to preemptively strike. And we talk about that on
Yeah.
studyofviolence.com.
Right, Pam. And on one of the videos, you guys talked about, like you said, maybe good guys having a bad day, right?
Yeah.
But you make sure to give a person a benefit of doubt.
Yes, yes.
I
Right.
thought that was a very important and well stated thing in your video series, video course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because and not many people talk, actually not many people talk about that, when you feel threatened and you feel like you're gonna get hit first, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how
What's the aftermath of that? What if you hit that person too soon and they weren't a bad, and you hit them in the throat and you killed them? Throat strikes are lethal. The windpipes swell shut. What if you broke their jaw or broke their neck and that you don't, or they fall and hit their head, and when they hit their head, it causes a damaging blow to the point they're, in a coma or permanent brain damage? You're legally liable for that. Do you really want to ruin your entire life and potentially someone else's over silly crap? Parking spots and differences of opinion, it's lives are ruined. And you had mentioned earlier at the beginning of our chat that men assault men more often. That's true, statistically speaking, but they're social violence situations. These aren't predators attacking predators. These are decent human beings where you add alcohol into the mix, or ego flares, which is coming from what? An overinflated ego. And how dare you talk? That's a trauma response. It's all rooted in trauma. It all comes back to trauma. Violence causes trauma, and trauma causes violence. It's like a snake eating itself. So it's important we address this because it is the root cause. It's why sociopaths become sociopaths. They are traumatized children. They're not born that way. They're created. People with extreme narcissists, same thing. It's all trauma. Heavy, but true.
It is so heavy, Pam, and but I'm so glad that you are talking about this. We are talking about this because this is not something that you can learn by going to the self. No offense, but going to the
Yeah.
self-defense class at the karate place
Yeah.
for 2 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the thing is too, is that's another thing no one talks about is you have students for 5 hours. What are you going to teach them? You can't get right into the physical, because 90% of the time it's going to be someone they know. What if that's a child? It's, they can't just throat strike their Uncle George, who's been grooming her for the last 5 years. That's not going to happen. You have to touch into mindset and consider trauma responses. It's a lot different when it's your husband suddenly putting their hands on your throat. It's a lot different. Nobody talks about this stuff, and it's critical if we want to save lives. Otherwise, we are being irresponsible as self-defense teachers. We have to look at trauma responses, fight and flight response. What happens when someone chokes you, when it's this happening and you're scrambling and you're not going to know your left from right, right? You go for eyes at that point. Why? That's going to get them to let go. If they're high on something, smashing arms isn't going to do anything. I've seen, a video of a man strangling his wife. The son has a baseball bat and is taking the bat to his father's arms, and the guy doesn't budge. If a bat doesn't get him to let go, none of this stuff is going to work, but she can certainly gouge the eyes to get him to let go so she can breathe again and get off of him. These are reality, the state of reality and trauma.
Totally. Like I had some episodes with antisocial violence. And yeah, like when somebody's, I would say like possessed with or like some have superpower.
The red zone.
Yeah. Like superpower, like something that you never seen human being like moves like that or like acts like that, or that the speed that they move is just extremely like it's really like a matrix speed.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It is
Terrifying.
it is horrifying, terrifying, and nothing you can. I mean, I did my best, but
it's hard, and but and it's hard to talk about this stuff and put that reality in there, but we can't water things down and we can't sugarcoat it. And it's important that what's going to get you through that, it's not the physical components, it's the mindset. It's turning your fear and your holy crap into indignation. How dare you? How dare you try and hurt my children by hurting me? F you, you're an obstacle now. You're now the human, no matter who it is, you're the human organism trying to take my children's mother away, or my parents' daughter, whatever it is. Tap into the love you have. And we talk about that in our mindset course, right? We all have it in us. And I'm more interested, not in techniques and that, I'm interested in the science and the evidence and stories of people who overcame, absurd, crazy obstacles and circumstances without any training. What got you through that? And you read it, the common denominator is, I wanted to go home. I wanted to get home. I wanted to get out of that situation. And it was indignation and the will to live and survive. And understanding that when we are fighting for our life, we go back to a very feral animal state of mind, because we're back in that midbrain, in our reptilian brain. This part of our brain is shut off when we're in fight and flight position. So left from right, fine motor skills, all of that stuff doesn't work. You're not going to know, grab him here on this exact part. That's not going to happen in reality, but you're going to know, if I go for his eyes or his throat, his instinct is going to go into defensive. We want to go offense to make him or her defensive. That's what we need to do. And we are wired to do that. It's within us. We all are wired to do that. We just have to plant the seeds and we'll get there. And I can't tell you how many testimonials from girls as young as 13, 14 that I've taught, who months later found themselves in extreme, horrifying situations, and they survived because, I want to see my mom again. Or they went through for the eyes, they went through and they survived, and their attackers didn't survive. And that's very important. That's what we want. We want to, increase that survival risk, that survival chance there for sure.
Yeah, Pam. So I have two more questions before I let you go. In many self-defense classes, we talk about like damage, right? You have to not to hurt the attacker, but make sure you damage the person so that person cannot chase you, or cannot doing what he or she is doing, right? But at the same time, you mentioned that we have to save lives. We have an obligation, moral, ethical, and legal obligation to yourself, your family, and also an attacker, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage that, all that?
So the pain is important. We don't want to go for pain compliance, because there are individuals that don't register pain, emotionally disturbed individuals who pain is nothing to them, or they literally can't feel it, or they're high on something and it doesn't matter. So we want to debilitate. And the only two targets on any human being that will debilitate them are eyes. If they can't see, they can't fight, and the windpipe. If they can't breathe, they can't fight. Now, yes, we have a moral, legal, ethical in a social violence situation. We have that moral legal when it's a decent person, having to try and get them to walk away, to de-escalate properly, don't provoke them, get them to walk away. But when it comes to antisocial violence, if it has gotten to the point where it has gotten physical and your life depends on, we're talking about extreme situations here, you're not going to make it out unless you go to the extreme fighting back, then you become your first priority. You can't worry about that individual. But yes, we call, if we can, when we get out of that situation, 911. Our obligation is to get back to our family and to protect ourselves. We worry about, in the moment, legal consequences and the extreme after. That's what good lawyers are for. That's what the law of self-defense is for, and the like. And when it comes to lethal force, it has to, whatever force you dish out, it has to parallel the threat that you're seeking. That's what the law states in first world countries anyway. The level of threat you're facing, you have the legal right to give that force, the equal force. right? So that's important. How do we manage that? Scenario training it is huge. It's one thing to read this and listen to it. It's quite another to get into, and I'm a huge fan of scenario training and making it as realistic as possible in a safe environment, and supported by the peers and the teacher and the like. Scenario training is huge, and the scenario training has to, as close to reality as we can get, has to match without anyone obviously getting hurt in that. But it's very important, and the verbal de-escalation is included in that. Practice, role play, act, being in a verbal confrontation, because that's where people freeze the most, is they don't know what to say. Play the role of a good guy having a bad day. Now play the role of a predator. What do I say to someone who's trying to lure me or trying to groom me? No is a complete sentence, right? And the like. And using your voice to tell someone, especially for children, is important as well. So we want to debilitate. Not hurt, debilitate.
Absolutely, 100%. So, Pam, the last question is, how can a woman overcome what if I get attacked fear? So, what would be your answer?
So the fear, how to overcome fear.
What if I get
Fear,
attacked fear that, everybody has on the street, and when someone is walking behind you in the
yeah,
dark, or some place that, I don't know, when you're trail running, right?
yeah.
All women have that, like, what if I get attacked? If something happens, what if?
What
How
if,
would
what if?
a woman overcome that?
So first of all, understand, educate yourself. Information is very powerful. As far as the scenarios and the situations you're talking about there, those are stranger situations for the most part, and they're rare. They're 10% of the time. It's still possible, but they're rare. You're more likely to be attacked by someone you know. A friend, a family member, an acquaintance, your boss at work. That's more likely to happen than the stranger. So understand that as well, and understand that there are things you can do when you're out and about in the public to make yourself an undesirable target, right? Don't go like, never have headphones in your ears outside a controlled environment. You shouldn't be running with headphones. You can't hear anything. You're taking away a vital survival skill, and sources you're hearing. Don't have hoodies up that, block your peripheral vision. Be able to look around, glance around you. Listen to the sounds that you hear. What am I hearing right now? I hear a dog barking. I hear footsteps behind me. You're looking at where you're hearing these sounds. You're glancing around at your environment and just paying attention to what's going on around you. Avoid running in secluded areas where there's very little people around. It might be pretty in that, but if you're going to go on trails like that, have a running partner or go with the group rather than alone, right? And avoid, again, if you want to go alone, avoid the headphones. Take lessons, practice, prepare yourself for things. And when it comes down to, parking safety, park with your vehicle so you can drive away. You don't have to back out from a space. You can simply drive right out of that situation. Scan your vehicle before you get in and the like, and don't give your back in certain situations. When you bend over to pick something up, you bend and squat rather than over from the hips, and you block your vision and you're off balance. You're easy to ambush from behind. If you're loading stuff into your vehicle in the back seat, the back door is open, you have your back to the back door and you're still paying attention to your environment and scanning, do I see anyone around, anyone in the vehicles? Just be aware. Awareness is huge. Rich and I do have an upcoming webinar at the end of this month on how to become an undesirable target beyond urban awareness. So how to not be a target to predators online through online dating. Online dating tapes, how not to be targeted by bullies in the workplace and by friends and the like. It goes beyond urban environment and awareness. But that's on February 28th. Deaf people can reach out to me if they want more information on that, for sure. But there's a lot that we can do. And the fear management, if something happens, okay, we do what we can to prevent and avoid, for sure, but we do all of that and something still happens. How do I manage fear in that moment? Again, goes back to mindset. Who else are you protecting? Who do you want to see again? Who is this person trying to keep you from seeing and hugging again? Think about how devastated your loved ones would be if you don't come home. Get angry, fight like the devil, through that person because they're now an obstacle between you and your loved ones. Get angry. That healthy anger that's inside of us. You know, Bruce Lee has a very prophetic quote, and it's about removing victim mindset from our mentality. And it's, you know, you should look at the enemy as, I am not locked in a room with you. You are locked in a room with me. Very powerful. You should be scared of me. You picked the wrong person. Right. And that's important. Yeah.
Totally. Awesome, Pam. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been incredible, and I learned a lot from you, and I'm sure audience as well. So thanks again, Pam, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Would you like to get the advices from the world's top self-defense experts? If so, go and get your pass from www.womensselfdefensesummit.com.